Live from our hurricane headquarters with real-time analysis from some of the nation's top meteorologists, this is Tracking the Tropics, powered by Bose Electric.
Happy Wednesday. It is Wednesday. That means it is our regularly scheduled episode of Tracking the Tropics, the last one of September. It's Amanda and Rebecca in the house today, and we do have an active episode. I mean, we don't have anything threatening land, the United States, at the moment, but we still have an active storm. We have another one that's going to develop right on the heels, so still plenty to talk about today, Rebecca.
Yes, plenty to talk about, but it's my favorite kind of storms, the ones that are not headed my way.
Yeah. And that's what we've seen the past, couple of weeks. Obviously, we have seen a few impactful storms, but these are our favorite.
Yes, these are our favorite, and so we're going to go ahead and send Amanda over to the wall so that we can find out exactly where these are headed and if we need to be worried about them or not. And I want to remind you, if you have a question, you just use a hashtag Hey Amanda or hashtag Hey Rebecca. That allows us to see your comment on the screen, and then we can answer it for you here live. Here's Amanda.
Yeah, so we'll start by breaking it all down for you, of course, on Tracking the Tropics. First off, big overview of what's going on. There's the United States, here's Miami. We got a lot of tropical moisture kind of streaming in from the Caribbean. Not expecting anything to develop tropical from this, but it is impacting our forecast. And we'll talk about that here in just a few. But this is our only active storm right now, Tropical Storm Philippe. It is still a tropical storm at the moment. And then right on its heels, we have Invest 91L, where we are likely going to see our next named storm develop with that system. And again, that's right behind Tropical Storm Philippe. Right now, though, we are seeing the storm being affected by a little bit of wind shear, so that's why we're not seeing it get incredibly strong. It remains a tropical storm at this point. And there's a closer look at Invest 91L. It has a high chance of developing. That's why I said it's likely going to be our next named storm. But as we said at the beginning of the stream, neither of these storms, at the moment at least, pose a threat to the United States. We'll take a look at the forecast models here. Our next name on the list is Rena, and that name replaced Hurricane Rita back in 2005. But here's a look at Philippe. Those maximum winds as of the 11 a.m. advisory, 50 miles per hour. Pressure is down below 1,000 millibars. It's moving west at 9 miles per hour. Pretty typical speed for a tropical system here. That forecast track continues it on that westward track over the next couple of days through the weekend. Notice we're not really seeing a northward curve or a southward curve with this. But you'll notice a change in the icons here as it moves over the Caribbean islands. It goes from that tropical storm status down to an L, which means that is just a tropical depression. Doesn't look like this storm is actually going to hold together as we go through the middle portion of next week. This would be next week, early next week, that it likely will become back to a tropical depression and weaken. That is the big story with this one. And then possibly a little bit after that, recurving off to the north, at least what's left of Philippe. But all that to say, doesn't look like it is going to make it to the southeastern United States. I will say that it is going to bring a lot of moisture to the Caribbean islands. And we do know that the Puerto Rican, Dominican Republican area obviously affected by a lot of tropical moisture in the form of mudslides. So we'll be watching for that closely, but doesn't look like Philippe is going to be a very strong storm. Doesn't look like it's going to last very long either. So let's look at Invest 91L because that is, again, right behind Philippe. And those forecast models are all in really good consensus that it is going to stay a fish storm, missing the islands completely. So it does look like it's going to start to move off to the north there a little bit more. So again, this will likely become Rena, R-I-N-A, but not impacting land at all. So that's some good news. But that means we're all the way up to that R name. Of course, we did have Ophelia form late last week. We did talk about that storm on last week's episode. It did become our next named storm, and it did impact the Carolinas, brought actually a good bit of storm surge up there, and then made landfall and then continued to move off. Now we're dealing with Philippe here, likely going to stay a tropical storm, but that next name on the list is Rena. But that brings us to a total of 17 named storms so far. We did have that one unnamed storm in January. It was a tropical storm. It just didn't get a name because it was discovered after the fact. But a total of 17 tropical storms so far, which puts us right in line for those forecasts that we got during the middle of the year. Of course, both of those forecasts were updated in August, and we're right in line with that. But we still have a couple of months to go. We have all of October and all of November to go. We're right here on the climatology graph here. So that means we have the rest of this month, which isn't much longer, right? But we have October and November to go of activity. And we could still see activity through October and November as well. October, we do typically look a lot closer to home for that tropical development because of those fronts coming in and stalling out. We also talked about that on last week's episode. But my main concern heading into October and November is that in our vicinity, closer to the United States and in the Caribbean, where we do watch for these tropical storms to develop over the next couple of months, we've got a lot of energy there, a lot of energy for tropical systems to develop off of. So we're going to have to watch that closely heading into October and November.
And so, friendly reminder, if you have a question, you can use our hashtags. You can see mine there on the screen is hashtag Hey Rebecca, but if you'd like to ask Amanda your question, the hashtag is hashtag Hey Amanda. And that allows us to see your question and display it on the screen, and then we can address it and answer it and get to the discussion. And so we talked a lot about this all season long. Was it going to be wind shear or sea surface temperature that ended up being defining this season based on El Nino and those unusually warm sea surface temperatures? And it looks like the shear has just been so disappointing for us this year. It just really hasn't helped out that much.
Yeah, the warmer waters certainly have overtaken the shear by every means of it, because we've seen an above average season so far, and we're not done. As I just said, we have October and November to go, and it does look like those warmer waters are going to continue to warm out with storm after storm developing. Luckily, though, it doesn't look like anything on the horizon for the United States at the moment. We're just dealing with all that tropical moisture we have out there right now.
Yes, and we actually need that chance for rain, and so that's actually kind of enhancing our chances for showers across the state right now, some of that tropical moisture. We had one of the driest rainy seasons I can remember. We were down 17 inches of rain along the coastline of Sarasota County. Yeah. And so transitioning into an El Nino winter, which typically means a lot of rain for us, even though that wintertime storms tend to be a tad more bombastic across our area.
Yeah, so we can still certainly use the rain. We still have that extreme drought down there along the coast. We have plenty of moisture over the next couple of days. And yeah, we'll be watching for that El Nino to continue, because if it does continue to get stronger and stronger and actually starts to look like an El Nino in terms of our atmosphere, well, we could be dealing with some stronger storms in the winter as well, but those rain chances would continue.
And I want to bring in our first question here for you. Hold on just 1 second. Remember, use the hashtag Hey Amanda or hashtag Hey Rebecca to ask a question. And so that's how we are able to see your questions and your featured comments. This one goes to hashtag Hey Amanda. We are headed to Cozumel and Costa Maya on a cruise out of Galveston. We leave October 2nd. Will this storm be gone by then?
It does look like this tropical moisture that we have out there right now will be kind of dissipated by then. It looks like you're not leaving for another week or so. It looks like we'll get a push of some drier air. However, as you go down there, I don't think there's going to be anything organized down there, an organized tropical system. Now, could there be showers and storms around? Yes. I just don't think it's going to look like anything tropical. You're not going to be dealing with a tropical storm. But there might be some showers and storms around because, well, it's the Caribbean, so there's still moisture down there in general.
And cruises do a really good job of driving you around those kinds of systems. They don't let you get stranded or anything like that.
Yeah, but have fun. That's exciting.
It sounds like a good trip too. All right, we got another one. This one is a featured comment from KFDX. Is that a storm coming across Texas?
Yeah, I think we are all focused in right on that, all of that moisture that's over kind of near the Caribbean, kind of streaming into the state of Florida there. Now, a couple days ago, the National Hurricane Center was highlighting this for possible tropical development, but they quickly took that possibility away. We're looking at an upper level area of low pressure, so not anything organized tropical. It does just look like some moisture at the moment. We will keep a close eye on it. Either way, though, it doesn't look like anything's moving in the Texas direction.
And I know they could use some of that rain also in Texas. They've been pretty dry there. I have been monitoring the Carolinas just because of where that last system kind of ended up, bringing them a ton of rain. And they are really up on rain in the Carolinas right now. They could use a break in the rain, especially on the weekends. It's been raining every weekend there.
Yeah, we talked about that last week on Tracking the Tropics. Our featured meteorologist was from the Carolinas, and that's what he was saying. Every weekend, right on cue, those rain chances were going up. And then, of course, Ophelia moved onshore last weekend there. Doesn't look like they're getting a break, at least along the coast at the moment.
Man, Do you want us to both get jealous with one comment?
Oh,
yeah. Are you ready?
Let's see it.
Hashtag, hey, Rebecca. Hashtag, hey, Amanda. Just tuning in. We're planning a trip to the Keys next week. Should we reschedule?
No, we may actually. You might actually get in on some lower rain chances for the middle of next week. That'll be a really fun trip. Typically, this time of the year, you start to wonder about those cold fronts that are coming down. But it doesn't look like the front will make its way that far south. But I think your rain chances will be a little bit lower.
And the mahi bite is on fire.
Yes, it is.
Next question, hashtag, hey, Amanda. We've been pretty lucky so far with everything turning north in the Atlantic. Doesn't that change towards October and November?
It sure does. And that is one thing us here in Florida, we look at very closely during the month of October, because what happens is we'll start to see those cold fronts make their way a little bit farther to the south, but they stall out over the Gulf of Mexico. And that leaves an unsettled pattern over the Gulf where we still have really warm waters. And we can see areas of low pressure develop along those stalled fronts. And that's where we can see those tropical systems develop. Even if they're subtropical, tropical doesn't really matter at that point. But it's feeding off of those warm Gulf waters. And we can see those systems then track across the state, depending on exactly where they develop. So October's especially, kind of hazardous time for you, if you will, if you're in the state of Florida like we are, because we watch for those systems to develop along the stalled front. So that is something over the course of October and into November. The reason I keep saying into November this time around is because we have a lot of energy in the Gulf of Mexico right now. And if there's a front that comes down in November, if we still have warm waters at that point, those fronts can certainly pick up off of that energy.
And that's an interesting phenomenon. I had not realized that working on the East Coast so much. It was really September was prime time because of the steering current. So when I made the move over here to the West Coast of Florida, I had to start worrying about October vacations too.
Yes, as a meteorologist, we don't like to plan too many trips during the hurricane season.
No, not at all. With the fish storms that we've seen this season, I'm interested to see if our development zones, if this sort of trend continues, if our development zones shift a little bit with the warmer waters.
Yeah. It will be very interesting to see for the rest of the season. I'll pull up that graph again, because again, we're right there where that arrow is, and we're still very high on this graph, and we've got a long ways to go yet. So, hopefully they all stay fish storms like Philippe and potentially Rena will be, but it's too early to say, a little bit too early to say.
And here's something neither you nor I like to talk about, winter. Hashtag, hey, Amanda, the Farmer's Almanac says we will have a colder winter. Will it be colder or wetter?
Well, with El Nino developing, and it does look like El Nino will continue to develop and get stronger heading into our winter months. So we're really talking December, January, February, even into March. We typically see a wetter and a little bit cooler of a winter with El Nino in place. One, because, well, the storm tracks during those winter months typically would go up to the north and bring, snow to areas off to the north. But with an El Nino in place, those storm tracks tend to move over the state of Florida a little bit more. That leads to more cloudy days and rainy days. So the clouds keep our temperatures down a little bit. And of course, the rain comes with those systems. So it does end up being a little bit wetter of a winter. However, again, with those storms tracking over us, they do tend to be a little bit stronger. So we have to worry about severe weather.
Interesting. And so I am looking forward to my first El Nino winter in Tampa Bay. I've had some El Nino winters in North Florida, but it's a whole different ball game with the Gulf right beside you.
It sure is. We have to watch every single line of storms that come in off the Gulf, because a lot of times we'll see waterspouts developing and they'll move on shore, and that happens at any time during the day. So it is a little bit more active of a winter for us.
And this is last call for questions on Tracking the Tropics. If you're just now joining us, Rena may soon form and Felipe is fading. If you'd like to ask a question here on the stream, just use the hashtag Hey Rebecca or hashtag Hey Amanda. You can see them on the screen underneath our faces there, and that will allow us to see your question and display it on screen and even go ahead and answer those questions for you. I'm interested to see how slow Philippe starts moving when it finally gets over Puerto Rico, because that could be a rainfall issue for them.
It really could, because yes, we're excited. It's not coming to the United States as, a big tropical system for us, but any rainfall for them is always problematic just because of how mountainous those areas are. And and just in general, a lot of rain in a short amount of time for them. Their infrastructure is not nearly as great. So a lot of rain can lead to flooding, and that's always a significant problem down there. So I'll be watching for that closely. And again, that time frame going to be late in the weekend, early next week.
All right, we got one more question for you here. Hashtag Hey Amanda, how is it looking for the start of eagle season, October 1st in Fort Myers, Florida?
Oh, eagle season. Is that? I'm assuming we're talking about the birds.
I would assume so. The eagles. I think so. I've never heard of eagle season, but now
I haven't
I'm excited.
either.
I'm going to be Googling it when we get
Yes,
done
me
here.
too. Me too.
I'll go ahead and start Googling while you answer.
Google it, and then I'll do my best to talk about rain chances in October here.
There we go.
As we've been saying, as we get into October, we do have to watch a little bit closer to home with those tropical systems. But heading into at least October 1st, October 2nd, early next week, does look like we're going to get in on some drier air. So at least the start of the month will be okay for the eagles.
So this is exciting. Eagle season is bald eagle nesting season, October 1st to May 15th.
Oh, okay.
And so maybe we can go spotting down there.
We'll have to go check it out.
Go on an adventure. Thanks for bringing that up. All right. I am going to go ahead and start to wrap this session of Tracking the Tropics out. But of course, you can find any past episodes, and we do a lot of what we call evergreen episodes, hurricane preparation tips, really interesting hurricanes and scientific phenomena and analysis and that sort of thing. So it could be fun for weather nerds to dig back through some of our podcasts.
Absolutely. Just topics that if you just want to know about in general, we do a lot of that during our quiet months at the beginning of the season. And we did have a few.
We did have a couple of quiet months, but you can find those on Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And we stream live here every week, usually Wednesdays at 12:30. We were a little bit delayed because of some breaking news, but we're happy to be here.
Yes, and we will close out today's episode of Tracking the Tropics. You can find all the past episodes on trackingthetropics.tv. You can also listen to them on our podcast, wherever you get those podcasts from. But for today's episode, for Rebecca and myself, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Find Tracking the Tropics on these platforms. And for storm updates, the latest models, and helpful resources, visit trackingthetropics.tv.